So now I've bisque fired the coffee mug. It's in that intermediate, it's not clay anymore. It's gone through quartz inversion. It's now hard and porous, ready to receive glaze. But before I glaze this, I need to put a sealer or a wax resist on the foot so that glaze doesn't get a chance to soak into the foot. If you leave glaze on the foot, when you fire it, the glaze will melt onto the shelf and ruin it. So you've got some choices. Oh, and I always work on a banding wheel so that, well, if you try to put the sealer on without the banding wheel, it's going to be this real fussy, hard to do thing, and it's going to show. So the purpose of the banding wheel, if you put it on here and center it just like you would trimming on the pottery wheel, see how now by the turning of the banding wheel allows me to apply the sealer without moving the brush. Now that makes it a much more efficient and much more elegant application of the sealer. The tricky part with using the sealer or the wax is managing it, not letting it drip all over everything. Wherever it lands on your artwork, it's going to seal and glaze will not go there. So now, let's take for example, if I've got sealer on my fingertips and I grab my cup, well look, now the sealer is there just like with the foot and no glaze will go there. So now I have an unintentional decoration I don't want. Now, students will say, oh, I'll take some sandpaper and say, no, you don't sand it off. That's not going to work. And it's dangerous. It creates free silica in the air that you don't want to breathe. The only practical answer to this mistake is to put it back in the kiln with the other greenware and fire the resist material away and start again. So now we're going to glaze the coffee mug. I'm choosing a Chino glaze. Each one of these glazes are labeled with the name of the glaze on the lid and the name of the glaze on the side. Here in this studio, you're here with other students, many of them are beginners. Sometimes they'll mix up the lids. They'll put this one on that one inadvertently without knowing any better. So if you know that, it's important that you check the label on the side. That's the more reliable label. Okay, so I'm going to mix this up. The reason why I have to mix the glaze is that a glaze is basically constituents that, like a recipe, combined they will melt in the kiln and create a glass coating. Now we have to mix those constituents with water, and some of them are heavier than others. And so the heavier ones settle to the bottom, and if you don't mix up the glaze, what you get is an incomplete recipe. The heavy ingredients aren't allowed to be on the glaze when you're putting it on your artwork. So you have to always remember to mix up the glaze. I'm going to use this electric motor that is loud, so I'm going to protect my ears. Oh, yeah, I'm also going to bring this bucket of rinse water over here so that when I remove the paddle from the glaze, I'm going to go straight from here into that bucket so I'm not drooling glaze all over the floor. It's just a very efficient way of keeping it, preventing making a mess. Okay, next. It's important to notice that there's instructions on this lid too. This glaze works really well if it's a quick dip. Now let's compare that to cranberry. This glaze works better if you hold it down in there a lot longer. So you count to 5, you put your artwork into the glaze and then count to 5 so that you're holding it down in there longer. This works better if it's on thick. This works better if it's thin. So I'm going to use tongs to glaze my, that one doesn't have any sealer on it yet. I need to grab one that I've already put sealer on. I put a dye in the sealer so you can tell it's slightly colored here. It's kind of pink instead of the salmon color. Wax is even more obvious because we put a blue dye in the wax. But now this is ready to be dipped. I'm going to put the vertical grip inside and the horizontal grip on the outside for this. And I'm going to want to make sure that there's room between the tongs and the rim of the cup before I dip this. And remember, this is a quick dip, so I don't want to spend any more time in the glaze than I absolutely have to. And I'm even going to shake it a little bit, blow off any excess that might have built up on the foot. Yeah, see, this applies much better if you, it gets all globby and gobby if you leave it in there too long. Now notice that the bisqueware is so porous that it's already sucked up the moisture in the glaze, so much so that I can actually put my finger on there already. But look where I have applied the resist material, it still has a wet residual glaze on it. I'm going to make sure that I wipe that off. This is a step that sometimes beginners forget to do. They think that the wax resist is going to completely prevent glaze from getting on the foot. No, you have to wipe the residual amount off also before you go to the next step.